couple that with all the technology, which we talked about previously, the applicant tracking system, all the tech. And now you just have people who show up and they're inspired to go make an impact and to improve people's situations and give them the opportunity to be better and provide for their family. So we do that a lot, man. I mean, as we talked about, we hired just over 1,500 people last year. So, and that's not going to, it will continue to do that. So it's cool. It's been a fun ride.
Have you ever wondered how successful architecture, engineering, and construction companies scale their business?
Or have you ever wanted guidance on how to get more growth, wealth, and freedom from your AEC company?
Well, then you're in luck. Hi, I'm Will Forat.
And I'm Justin Nagel, and we're your podcast hosts.
We interview successful AEC business leaders to learn how they use people, process, and technology to scale their businesses.
So sit back and get ready to learn from the industry's best. This is Building Scale.
Hey listeners, it's Will here. Our mission is to help the AEC industry protect itself by making technology easy. If you've ever listened to our show, then you know that the 3 pillars of scaling a business are people, process, and technology. So if you suspect technology is your weak link, then book a call with us to see where we can help maximize your company's IT and cybersecurity strategy. Just go to buildingscale.net/help.
Today's guest is JP Jaramillo, the VP of Talent Acquisition at Nox Group. JP is a Phoenix native who discovered his passion for people at just the age of 13. Working in his family's Mexican restaurant in Maryville community, after high school, he jumped into B2B tech sales, but he found his true calling in construction recruiting in 2005. And over the past 19 years, JP has climbed from entry-level recruiter to vice president, helping build high-performing teams for contractors doing $500 million to $2 billion in annual revenue. Today, JP brings that people-first mindset to Nox Group, a powerhouse construction enterprise operating in Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, and soon Nevada. With a workforce of over 1,400 skilled craft professionals, Nox Group self-performs across electrical, heavy civil, prefab, and VDC, serving sectors like semiconductors, mission critical, and water/wastewater. And when he's off the clock, JP is a family, faith, community guy and a proud husband, dad, basketball coach who still finds time to hit the golf course when he can. And with all that said, JP, welcome to the show.
Man, thank you. Glad to be here, man. I'm super pumped. Great intro, by the way.
Yeah, I like to take all the credit for the intro, but it's really, you gave me a bunch of stuff, or your marketing team gave me a bunch of stuff, and then I, just not shameful about it, utilize AI a little bit, and bingo bango, look at that. We're sounding great. But with that said, and with that great intro, tell us the real story. You tell us about how you got into the industry, and tell us about Nox Group.
Yeah, man. I mean, as you mentioned, I grew up as a native to Arizona. My family, my dad's family actually came over from Mexico, started the Mexican food restaurant game here in Arizona. So I grew up bussing tables, running the cashier booth, working my way up to server all through high school. That's all I did, man. I made money and got bad grades. So I make the perfect talent acquisition professional, I guess you could say.
That's the recipe to find them. Maybe that's the secret sauce when you're looking for other recruiters. You're like, hey, were you in the industry, the serving industry? And did you get bad grades?
Yeah. No high GPAs here. We leave that for the HR folks. So, but yeah, man, it was fun. Worked all through high school and graduated, as you mentioned, got into B2B sales. I did try the blue collar work for about a year, pulling cable out in one of the local chip manufacturers. And I just decided after a year that wasn't for me. And I hit the phones, and 3 or 4 years later, I found recruiting, got into recruiting, and man, 19 years and the rest is history. I've recruited across the country for IT to start, and then I got into construction, owned my own business for a few years until the market crashed in '08, and then found my way over to Sunt Construction. And that's really where I'd say I built my corporate career for about 9 years, built a lot of great relationships. And that's how I got here, with Greg Ayers and Justin Martin calling me back almost 3 years ago, asking if I wanted to come over here and go build rocket ships and do some exciting stuff. So here we are, man. I'm almost coming upon my 3-year anniversary, and we've completely revamped all things talent, which has been super cool. I have to find things to do, so I'm doing something wrong. I tell my boss all the time, I need some work because the team's kicking ass, and they're in a great spot. So I'm obviously super proud.
Yeah, we actually when I was in Chicago last week with Will, we talked a lot about like the whole job of a leadership position is try to like make it where you're not required anymore, right? Like, how do I work myself out of a job in the best way possible? Because if I can just make everything run smooth, it looks like that. Oh, that's a bad idea, but in reality, that's leadership, right?
That's it, man. There was a quote recently. I don't share it much, but I think it was an Elon quote, or where he said like 90% of the work is done by so and so. I don't know. It basically was saying middle and senior leadership don't do shit. I don't agree with that fully, but yeah, let's not share that quote a lot.
Yeah, let's not tell Justin about that growth. That could be bad. Yeah. So, how did they pull you away and bring you over to Nox 3 years ago? What did they sell you on? Because they were recruiting you, right? Like, how did they get you over?
Yeah, I think it was just the vision, man. And what's funny is I reflect back in 2012, Dan Hag was the new CPO for Sunt. He had come from Mortensen after 20 years, and we had lunch. And Dan had cast a similar vision. We're doing 480 million in revenue. We want to grow to 200 billion. We want to get the ESOP to X evaluation or valuation. And we want you to come and spearhead the growth. And so I did that at Sun. I mean, we took that recruiting team from me to a college recruiting program that nets 100 interns to now I think they have 10 recruiters with 3 managers across the country. And so, I had kind of gotten a point there at Sun where I was happy. I had built something great. I had influence. I was on senior management council, but there's just something about me. I like to build. And I think I just was done building. The team was in place. They were kicking ass. And I don't want to say I was bored. I just like to live on the edge. And that's what I do, right? Even in my spare time, I'm a basketball coach. I love going and taking 10 kids and taking them from rec to competitive club, and the journey of building that relationship, building their skills, their basketball IQ. And it's no different on the talent acquisition side. And so when Justin and Greg said, here's what we want to do. We want to go from 180 million to $1 billion. We will get there, but obviously we need people, and we need a talent acquisition team that can help with that growth. And so, man, I got excited. And Justin's a man after my own heart. He's a visionary. He's very eclectic. He comes from nothing, very similar to me. I mean, I grew up on food stamps in inner city Maryville, and just the ability to connect with the front lines all the way up to the C-suite. There's power in that, and he and I share that in common. And, and then Greg, of course, Greg's one of the best BD guys in the world. I mean, he's just a monster. He has this ability to just build relationships and go get work. And so I knew that wasn't going to be an issue. It was just going to be trying to find all the people that we needed to accomplish that, just like at Sun. Yeah, they hooked me, and obviously the role and the opportunity to be a vice president, and, that I just couldn't pass it up, of course. So here I am. And we got through the war. I call it the second Civil War. I'd never come into an environment where I had to take an existing team and, unfortunately help some people out. And there was a lot of them. And that was real tough for me. I'd never been through that. So good opportunity for me to grow. And it allowed the right people to come onto the boat. And so we did that, and we've trained and we've developed, and man, it's been really cool. Couple that with all the technology, which we talked about previously, the applicant tracking system, all the tech. And now you just have people who show up and they're inspired to go make an impact and to improve people's situations and give them the opportunity to be better and provide for their family. So we do that a lot, man. I mean, as we talked about, We hired just over 1,500 people last year. So, and that's not going to, it will continue to do that. So it's cool. It's been a fun ride.
Okay, so hold on. I just want to pause there for a second. You said 1,400 people last year. How many people are like in the organization, the conglomerate of organizations
Yeah,
that you manage?
we're sitting between 16 to 1,800. So, we talked about one of the challenges with turnover, right? And I actually pulled the numbers from our Power BI dashboard. It was pretty interesting, which we know is an industry problem. But last year we had 61% turnover, which was majority craft. So about 715 craft left, either voluntary, involuntary. A project closed up and we didn't have a spot within the next week. It could be a variety of reasons, of course. And the craft world alone, we had hired last year 855. Now, that's just hourly electrical worker and journeyman. So that doesn't include your foreman, your field superintendents, all your professional staff, which makes up for the other 500. But, it's a challenge when you're seeing 700 people leave and you have to fill 1,000 or more craft. And that's the world we live in, unfortunately. And obviously we're all as an industry trying to figure out how do we make that pain a little less. But yeah, it's getting better.
Let's talk a little bit. The applicant tracking system, right? ATS. So not everyone knows what an ATS is. Can you explain what and why you would get an ATS, and maybe even at a size, right? When does it make sense? What are the indicators that you would maybe need an ATS?
I mean, applicant tracking system is the lifeblood of where all of your candidates, it's the beginning of your workflow, your recruiting workflow. So, for example, we have about 30,000 candidates in our applicant tracking system that came about through referrals, through our recruitment advertising plan, which includes Indeed sponsored ads, LinkedIn, you name it, right? So the goal of an applicant tracking system is to get candidates into your system to then sift through, sort, tag, and then go after the ones that you want to go after. And obviously it compounds because as you get applicants, then you get their references. There's a bunch of different ways to source candidates, but from the craft perspective, I would say the Indeeds of the world definitely produce the largest amount of active candidates. And when you do that across the country, it just state after state after state, you end up with a lot of money invested, but you end up with a database of people where now we can start to email market to, we can do text campaigns to. And in our business, we have to ramp incredibly fast. If we're going to go build a mission critical facility and we need 400 craft within 90 days, if you don't have 30,000 candidates to reach out to, what are you going to do? You're in trouble, right? Which is why we see a lot of companies in our industry leverage temp agencies or supplement their staffing, which isn't a bad strategy, but it's also going to cost you 50 to 60% markup, and the quality of talent compared to what my team screens for and what they've been coached to do, there's no comparison. And I have that conversation with owners of agencies all the time. They just shake my hand and go, JP, you're right. Call us if you ever need us. So yeah, your applicant tracking system, I still find a lot of companies that don't have one, and I don't know how they do it. I mean, spreadsheets and their HR, I don't know.
It feels a lot like a sales team without a CRM. Right?
Yeah.
It's just like you're going to throw it in Excel. Like that's the game plan. That seems insane. And I understand that CRM costs X amount of dollars. The efficiency that is increased is insane. Like I couldn't imagine running through a marketing list or a prospect list in just an Excel doc. Like that to me at this stage would be like, we are never going to grow the way we want to because we are so far behind technologically.
Yeah, and a lot of companies use the big like Teleos and the Workdays. And what's funny is those are great ERP systems, right? Like for HR and for internal employee management, but they're awful for actual true talent acquisition teams. And I've seen that firsthand, even at Sun. We went from iSums to Taleo, and Taleo was so cumbersome, you never really used it to its true capacity because the workflows within it were horrible. You have to, you got to remember, talent acquisition teams are typically they're high drive, want to move quick with the littlest amount of detail. They operate in the gray. So how do we keep the workflow consistent for quality, but also give them the ability to not have to spend a shit ton of time, putting a candidate through the process? That's the key difference with a true TA leader is like, okay, how do I understand my team and then give them the tools to help them be more efficient, not slow them down, which the other side is, right, which I partner with HR. They want to do checks and balances and slow and steady and consistent and quality. So you have to find the balance of how do we work together efficiently, or else it turns into a nightmare because then you're just cussing each other out and they hate you and you hate them. So
yeah, HR loves to be cussed out too, I hear. That's my understanding. They enjoy the conflict. Speaking of HR, when does it make sense? Because essentially, I know people that are in TA that say, no, I'm not in HR. Like it's not the case at all. However, when you are smaller, TA is under HR to whatever degree until a certain point. When does that break happen? Like when does it no, we just need its own department. The goals are so drastically different. And this can't just sit underneath the HR umbrella anymore.
I think it depends on the expected outcome, right? If you have 10 hires a year you need to make and HR can supplement with a couple agency partners and all they're doing is coordinating interviews and, things of that sort, then you can get away with it. In fact, I just had lunch with a local $100 million GC that I actually used to work with the owner back in 2006, and they've never built out a TA team. So their HR director, who I met with, she's wearing 5 hats.
Oh, boy. At 100 million? Oh, man.
It doesn't work. And she knows that. And she's asking me for my advice, right? Because I know the CEO. And I'm like, you're screwed. Like, unfortunately, because then it becomes a business decision because you have to invest in the overhead to build a TA team and all the systems and tools. If you want your outcome to be, I got to go find 1,500 craft a year. You're going to pay for it one way or the other, whether you go supplement with temp agencies and vendors, or you find a leader who can build a team internally and that, that knows the outcomes. Like I know the outcomes of my team annually. I know a good craft recruiter will net me between 550 and 650 hires a year. I know it. And we break that down to the weekly activity. It's a proven recipe. So like if I were to go to another company and they go, well, JP, what should I do? I'd go, well, what's your anticipated hires? And then let's break it down based on, right, recruiter activity and what's expected of them. But, you see that a lot where a lot of TA leaders don't understand that. They just think we come in, we manage, we provide a good experience, we hire some people, and yeah, you might get away with that. But not when you want to go from 200 million to $1 billion and scale nationally. Shit doesn't work. I've seen it. And then they just try to steal my people and my people just tell me, and I'm like, well, it's because they can't build a team. And I get it, right? If you can't build one, you go and you pay money to get the people that know how to do what you want to do. But yeah, I mean, I run into that issue a lot where it's like, when do I expand? When do I hire TA? And it's like, well, it depends on your growth goals. And then you got to go find the leader that's going to fit for your culture and that actually knows how to build a true TA team that is wired for what we do. Like my team, if you talk to any of them, you'd be like, they're wired for TA. Like they love it. They live it. They breathe it. They're genuine. Yeah.
Let me pause there for a second because you said something before, and I think it's actually important to understand because you said the recruiting process. Mm-hmm. Okay. Talk about what is the recruiting process, and then once we're done with that, then talk about the recruiters, which are really, in my opinion, salespeople for people.
Recruiting is pretty easy. It's your sourcing. You have to go source or find the candidates. Now, I'm speaking high level. You have to do a rec intake. You have to go get the requirements. We got to go through all that. We got to get the job posted, all that stuff. But really, as a recruiter, once I have all that, I have to be able to source. So what am I going to do to source candidates? There's reactive ways and there's proactive ways to source candidates. We want to take advantage of all those. Posting a job, headhunting, networking. We were golfing with a senior estimator at the competition yesterday, right? I took him golfing. We're building relationships. And so there's all these things we're doing to source candidates and keep them warm, help them understand who we are, learn who they are. After that, it's screening, right? We're screening candidates. We need to be able to effectively technically screen for someone's ability, hopefully at the highest level possible. That's not always the case, but that's expected of my team, and they have the resources to do it. They know how to ask a journeyman electrician all things electrical to the point where if they come in and hit our boards and they test, what my recruiters screen for and how they test, those numbers align. And we've been seeing that the last 90 days. They're 95% on point because their ability to ask the right questions and also understand industry, standard works, what electricians do day to day on our job sites. So screening is huge because your ability to screen when you submit a candidate to a hiring manager tells you everything you need to know. Because if your hiring manager is saying, no, I'm not interested, you're not sourcing effectively and you're not screening effectively. So now I know as a leader where my issue is. If every candidate getting submitted is getting interviewed, we're doing the sourcing and the screening right. Now from the screening part, after that's done and we submit it to the hiring manager, now we have to provide a good interview experience, and talent should lead the way, meaning I'm attending all my candidates' interviews with operations, with HR, and I'm hand-holding that candidate and that experience the entire way to make sure it's a quality one and make sure that the people interviewing are hitting on what they should be hitting on, which is fine-tuning technical ability, which is culture, which is a hierarchy of values. Do their values align with ours? And then obviously offer negotiations and closing the deal. So it's not super complicated, but within each of those buckets, there's a lot to coach and develop and learn, right?
That's like the say, like, it's not complicated, but it certainly isn't easy to do. Like,
No.
I mean, like this isn't like, but this is fine. I can just pull anybody to be a recruiter at a high level. And even if they were a recruiter, one thing that we've seen, and maybe you can speak to this, like, you know, we go outside to say, hey, like we need help finding candidates, right? And it's like, okay, cool. But depending on what they specialize in, like if they're more general, for us, we find that's really hard for them to understand to get a level 2 or 3 engineer. Like it's just very difficult because the skill set that engineer has, they just don't have the right questions. And like even when we provide like ideas and questions for them, it's just what we find is like the quality's dirtier. It's just a dirtier set of quality compared to when we find somebody that's like, oh, we specialize in IT and cybersecurity. Like that's where we specialize. We get such a higher level and value of candidate that comes in the door for us.
Yes, and that's the key. First, it's the ability to understand your industry and technically screen somebody. Now, the biggest challenge we have in talent, it's like you said, it's a sales game. You have to equip your talent acquisition team with something to sell. I mean, you do. Like, we're only as powerful as what we can sell. And then following through with the commitments we make and what we're selling. And so then you get into comp and benefits, which we talk about all the time. So the senior estimator I had golf with yesterday, he's with a company that has an ESOP that contributes 23% every year. He has a healthy base salary, great bonus structure. He's been there 8 years. He's got a team under him. What am I selling? How am I going to improve his situation or offer any sort of transformation, which is what most people want? It's the benefits of comp, right? Benefits, and then of course growth. And a lot of people will take pay cuts to come to an opportunity where they can grow. More times than not, though, if they're an individual contributor, it's not always the case. But why can't we offer them both? And that's the hardest part as a growing company, is figuring out the balance of internal equity versus the paychecks we're going to have to go cut. It's just like a sports franchise. At some point, the company that figures that out the best, both short and long term, they win the game. And Sunt is a prime example of that. I mean, they went from 500 million to over 4 billion in 12 years. And it's because they figured out a way to offer people short and long-term incentive. And part of that's with the ESOP and the growth of the ESOP. And, there's other factors of it. But so if you're a privately owned company that offers base plus 10% bonus and a 401k match that is 25 cents on the dollar, well, you're competing with people that may offer more than that. So how do you compete with that?
That's is that in and again, like you're handcuffed to what you're allowed. You can't just start, hey, let me give you whatever, right? Let me give you insane, let me just promise you the moon, and then like when you get in, that's not even you're nowhere, you're not even out of the stratosphere, right? So how do you work with that? But like I feel like there's got to be more of the story, like pitching the idea and the story and the vision, and maybe working with Justin Martin, maybe that brings some weight to this. And I don't know, maybe a craftsperson, what's the value of like the vision long term, because a lot of them are this company, that company, moving around a bunch. How do you paint that picture to say, hey, like this is the greatest place in all of the Valley or in all the Southwest to work?
Well, I mean, you really, growth creates opportunity. We know that. But when everybody's growing, everybody has opportunity. We're not the only one growing. So everybody is chasing the same work and has the same problems and cannot find high quality staff. So you have to have something that differentiates you. And I don't think enough time is spent on the comp and benefit strategy within organizations. I don't think enough time is spent there and really figuring out like, okay, so if we offer all of our project engineers trucks, what's the pro? What's the con? What's the impact to the business? Can we get our customers to pay for it? Yada, yada, yada. But I don't think most companies sit and go, man, how do we like navigate this strategy of compensating our people and also going and getting new people without pissing everybody else off? And maybe they do. I don't know. I'm not a part of those meetings, but I don't think it's the case. I think it's all an exercise. And my experience has been, if you want to, like, I get calls from Greg, right? He's like, hey, we're going into Reno. I need to know, like, what's the pay? What's the comp? I go, Greg, the comp is going to be how much the first senior project manager we call wants. That's the comp. Like, there's no like, oh, well, we're going to pay from 120 to 150. Well, when I go to NorCal and there's a guy making 200 and he can go run our work, what are you going to do? Oh, well, we'll pay it. Okay. So like, yeah, I mean, sometimes it's just like the market is dictated by the people in the market and what they're currently making, but more importantly, what it's going to take for them to leave their current situation and come to us. Like I see that all the time. You submit a candidate, they're at 150 and, oh, he's at 150. Yeah, he's at 150, but he's been there 6 years and he's not leaving for 150.
Oh,
Leave for more.
Yeah, it's you got a good situation at that dollar amount to get you to go. You have to have a bigger carrot, right? Like there's just no, especially if you're going to them, the outreach is to them in comparison to them coming to you, right? Because it's like, oh, well, if you're coming to me, there's certainly some intention of you're not absolutely happy, right? For whatever reason, it could be tons of things, but like you're not absolutely happy, because if you were, you wouldn't be calling me.
Right. 100%. That's the hardest part about what we do, especially if your TA team's good, because we can get in front of good talent and sell them on the growth. The hardest part is during the process of interviewing with people and then getting to the offer negotiation stage and having to go and do this whole circus show, over $15,000, $20,000. And maybe I'm just stupid and I think that's pennies, and maybe it's not, but I've seen it hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of times over my career. And if you don't get that right, you're going to keep struggling to go and find project managers, superintendents. Like, it's going to be a dogfight. So,
and then you have the churn, right? Because then, so even if you do get them in, the churn rate will probably be higher because you haven't like oversatisfied them, right? Like, because that's essentially the game. And then what are you doing? Now you're back recruiting again. And now you're like, so, and then training and everything, all the costs that come with it. So then when you chalk up 10 grand, you're like, we would have saved money if you would have just gave them 10 grand more.
Would have saved them money. I mean, and I think that's where this recruiting strategy and tactics as an enterprise, right, at the executive level, I think if we don't spend enough time on that, and if you really want to win and be a national multi-billion-dollar corporation that makes a lot of money, you're not going to do it without great people. And great people cost money. And guess what? The old Dave Ramsey quote, thoroughbreds don't run with donkeys. You want to hire thoroughbreds.
That's great.
You don't see donkeys running the Kentucky Derby. So, it's like, how is this a surprise? Why are you surprised? I mean, so that's the stuff we struggle with, and it can frustrate a good recruiter because, they go and they wine and dine a killer candidate, and then it's like, oh, well, we can't, they're making way more money than our current PM. Well, yeah, your current PM's working 16 hours a day. Like, you think that's going to last? No. And it's an industry problem. I see it across the industry. And I mean, there's just such a shortage of people that it's not going to go away anytime soon. So you have to be able to compensate people for their time. That's my opinion. Their time and their energy is worth something. And we do it for the craft. If they work 70 hours, they make a lot of money. But our PMs are on salary. They don't, right? It's lots of opportunity is what I'm getting at. And it fascinates me because I'm a data junkie and a guru. And I love to see, like, just how can we get better at selling and giving our team things to sell? Because if you have things to sell, you don't need a recruiting department. You may to move them through the process. But if you're so good, people are coming to you because they're like, sign me up, please. Like, then you don't need 10 recruiters. Maybe you need 2.
Since data and technology, let's go into this. I'm a little bit of a math geek as well. So tell us a little bit of the math, right? In terms of like, what metrics are you using to understand, let's say, how to get to filling a job requirements, and how many recruiters do you need, right? Kind of the back thinking to end up at a number, right? Because there's a lot of math that kind of happens on the back end in order to be able to fulfill, hey, I've got a job for 300, 400 people or whatever it is, right? Especially in 90 days. Let's just take your example. I think you said 400 people in 90 days, I think is what you said.
Yeah, I mean, so if you can on the craft level, I know a good recruiter can do 15 to 20 offers a week. If they're hitting 30 to 35 phone screens a week, and we have the right recruitment advertising plan, and we have the candidates in place and the referrals coming in, let's say that's their target, right? Then we have to figure out if we're going to go on that ramp, what else do we have? So if our projection for the year is 14 to 1600 hires, then I got to work backwards, and I got to go from a production perspective. If a team of 4, right, can do 40 to 70 offers a week, right, times 52 weeks, we know what we can, for the most part. You're going to have weeks where you get 6 offers. You're going to have weeks, but if we average it out, that's where we come up with, okay, this is the team we need to be able to make that many offers. You're going to have people reject offers. You're going to have people no call, no show. There's so many other variables. Now, if you go to the professional side, my rule of thumb is a professional recruiter should never be managing more than 10 recs at a time. Okay, 10 openings, 10 recs across the country. Now I've seen people like I've got a buddy at a $10 billion general contractor and they're managing 30 recs a piece. It's just not sustainable. You're not going to find quality people if you're focusing on. So what we do, what I've always done is I split it up by the businesses. I have one person overseeing Nox Innovations in all of our support groups. And she's much more wired, almost a little bit like an HR person. She's a little bit more steady. She has some drive. But those roles, typically we get referrals or we get applicants coming to us. So she's in the right place for her personality and she delivers results. Now, my other two senior level recruiters who are just go-getters, one supports RMCI, one supports Corbin's. And as there's, as things pick up or slow down on either, they kind of work together to fulfill the needs of those, which usually sits between 5 to 10 roles. And when I say roles, usually core operations, your FE, PE, PM, and superintendent are your core roles. So they're only really working 4 to 5 different positions, but there might be 2 to 5 openings for each position. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's got 10 different position titles. So if I can keep them in the core ops, and then you're always going to have pre-construction, you might have a anomaly like a VP or scheduling. But if I can keep them to no more than 10 actual positions, like titled roles, hopefully we sit them around 5, they can consistently produce around 50 to 100 roles a year. Fill them. Now, here's the tricky part again. It depends on your company's ability to give you something to sell. At Sunt, as a senior recruiter, I was filling 120 professional roles by myself across the country.
Wow.
Okay, I was an animal. I was working sometimes till 7 or 8 o'clock at night because I loved what I did and I had something to sell. And I'm not saying we don't here. However, we're also a subcontractor. So the amount of people we can recruit from drastically decreases because we're a sub. How many billion-dollar electrical subcontractors are there? 5. So there's probably a list of 100 across the country electrical construction subs that we can recruit from. So not all recs, not all environments are created equal. And that's where you really got to figure out that formula so that you can go and figure out who you need on the team and what they need to produce. Because if my senior guys find 40 good FEPE PM supers a year, and I got 2 of them and they're doing 80 to 100 together, that's pretty good because that's hard. It's a lot harder than going to work for McCarthy or Son. Like, it just is. I mean, they're selling ESOP, they're selling, national work, multiple offices. Like it's more convenient. It just is. And that's no knock on them because I used to sell it. So, then you figure $100 million GC that's doing tenant improvement work, margins are 4 to 5%. They probably don't have a lot of net income. They can't invest in the overhead necessary to go and help take them to 500 million. What are you going to do? You can't afford a TA team.
Interesting.
And so you have your HR manager wearing 5 hats. And
what about the process once somebody does accept an offer and they come on board, right? Because obviously you got to find great people. You have to identify them, find them, build the picture, sell them on the idea, get them to sign the contract. Then they come in and they're onboarded in some way or another. Like, does TA have anything to do with that? Or is it like, we've handed this off and we're going to hope for the best? Because, at the end of the day, if the churn happens, especially earlier, it's like, oh my God, this is the worst. That's got to be the worst feeling ever. This guy just started 30 days ago. Come on.
Yeah. I mean, no, we don't. We stay in contact with them because we built the relationship, but that's where it gets passed off to ops and HR, right? And learning development. But that's why it's so important during the interview process. And I will sit in interviews, and it's important for you to challenge your interviewers and operations teams to tell the candidate what the reality is and don't bullshit them. I mean, because, if you're going to tell my candidate that we grow and develop our PMs, okay, well, give me examples of where you've grown and developed PMs. Because the worst thing you can do is talk a big talk and then they show up and it's a shit show. Mm-hmm. Or not even a shit show. Maybe you don't provide the resources that you said you were going to. It just, nobody wins. And so that's a big, big lift for me and my team this year is how do we help coordinate the interview experience so that the truth comes out and that there's sincere, authentic conversation and they're leveraging where they've done what they're saying they're going to do, whether it's growth and development, whether it's opportunity to become a VP, whatever the case may be. And I think that's where we struggle is you're so busy selling that you're not connecting with individuals as individuals and humans and you're forgetting that they're a human being. You know, they only have so much energy. They have families. They have kids to go pick up from school. They've got baseball games and soccer games and birthday parties. And maybe they want to go to church on Sunday. So if they're going to be working a 7-day schedule, just be open and honest with them so they can make the best decision for themselves.
No, that makes sense.
Right?
The transition, right? Because it's like you see this in any sales role where it's like, hey, like we're gonna try to sell you the dream, the moon, but that transition of expectations to whatever the service is, and your guys, if it's electrical or if it's the GC work that y'all do, like that has to be correct. They have to be right on both sides, right? Like it has to be the same story, because if one side is off, good or bad on either side, it's like, oh man, like you're just doing a disservice to anybody you're talking.
It is. And candidates, the biggest lift for me and what I've seen is empowering your candidates to be on the offense during the interview. And what I mean by that is like, how do we help our candidates? We're not giving them the answers, but empower them to ask the quality questions that align with their values and what they want to know. Because a lot of times you go into an interview and boom, operations and HR, they're on the offense. They're like boom, 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 boom. And when do we ever give our candidates to ask the opportunity to ask, well, okay, so I answered your questions. What are you doing to improve, your project manager's work schedules? Like, what are they working right now? Are they working 14 to 16 hours a day? Are they working 8 to 10? Like, and what are you doing to make an impact in the industry so that your people have more time and energy? Like, nobody asks that. Why? It's one of the most important questions you could ask. Well, what support are you going to give me from a performance review and management's perspective? You're asking me to do one-on-ones with 10 project engineers and do quarterly one-on-ones and quarterly performance reviews. Well, what training and development do you have for me as a new PM to understand your culture and what your expectations are from me? Nobody says that. They just show up and then they get 10 notifications. You have 10 one-on-ones due. And it's not just us, it's the industry, right? So I just feel like the biggest passion of mine is the interview experience, to where we're connecting genuinely and we're just being real with each other so that there's no surprises. It's like, here's who we are. And if you join us, here's our commitment to you. But you know what? It might not be the first 90 days rosy, but I promise you this, right? So if we could just have more of those genuine conversations during the interview experience and allow our candidates to be on the offense as well, I think it would just produce such a better experience. And to your point, if they accept the offer, a better first 90-day experience, 6 months and beyond, right?
Yeah, totally.
So we could take this in so many different ways. I want to start, I think I want to start with the actual candidates, right? So you've identified, there's some potential candidates. Like, do you go through like a weed out process first? Would you consider that there's like a weed out process? And then after that, do you test technical or do you test culture first? Like, is there an order? Is there things?
Yeah, on the professional side, it's not really weeding out, because we're reaching out to thousands of humans and hoping that one says they're open to a casual conversation. And so you could talk to 5 project managers across the country currently sitting at ABC Electrical. And the hard part is you're building influence, rapport, selling them on us while trying to figure out if technically they're an apples to apples fit for what we're looking for in a PM. So it's this balancing act. Once we identify, okay, they're doing $40 million projects. Their craft workforce is similar. They're doing the similar processes that we do, from monthly forecasting to whips, yada, yada, yada. Great. Then we get them in front of our hiring managers and it moves forward. I think you can identify culture, but culture really in the beginning is just, are you nice? Are you helpful? Are you treating me like a human? And it's not complicated. Now, once you get in front of HR and the executives, sure, they want to go through your ability to lead, to develop, right? Like, what do you value? Do you value any of that? And if you don't, and you just want to go build work and you're really good at it, well, then let's just be open and honest. And if it's not an expectation of the role, then we'll move forward. But, the whole culture stuff to me is just like, where have you won? What do you like to do? Right? What are you good at? What motivates you? What doesn't motivate you? And what do you value? Because what you're going to do, what you value. That's just how the world works, right? I mean, So it's not complicated. I think we make it more complicated. There's this whole culture interview. Are they a nice person? Are they good at coaching, developing? Are they responsible? Are they reliable? Do people like them? Like, shit, man. Like, that's not the hard part. The hardest part is, are they going to be able to manage the expectations we're going to put on them? And are they going to be motivated and driven by them? Right?
Okay.
And then can we compensate them and reward them for what the gifts and talents they're bringing to the table, both short and long term? And fuck, man, it's not like outside of that. It's like we make it so complicated.
I love your simplification of this, which especially in the construction space is like, we don't have people. We can't find people. Like, it's very, it's screaming from the rooftops about how horrible it is and how difficult it is. And you're telling us it's like, it's not that difficult. Like, we're trying to overcomplicate this shit.
It's because, right, it all rises, all things being equal, again, it comes down to the head coach. And we have to have leaders in the company with the best leaders is going to win, because the leaders that know how to motivate, to basically give people the opportunity to take action and potentially potentially fail and learn from those mistakes. The leaders that are able to motivate and connect with their people and understand their values and what they're good at and delegate to where they can go shine, they're going to win. Their teams are going to win. And I'm living proof of that, right? And I'm not putting myself on a pedestal. That's why I'm in TA, because I get what motivates and drives people within our space. And then we give them an environment to take action, learn from their mistakes, right? Mitigate the big ones. And then life brings you the experience you need. It's no different on a construction site. Project managers build work. They manage budgets. So they got to be pretty sharp with that. Make sure we don't lose our ass. Hopefully we're making money. And then lead and develop people, man, and show up and actually enjoy what you're doing. I think the hardest part is just finding people that are apples to apples comparison. We can't go find someone that's building $5 million electrical scopes. They're not going to survive when we give them an $80 million or a contract, right? It's just,
That's a huge difference.
The companies with the best leaders are going to win. I love that. I don't know if that was your brain thinking of that in the moment, but that was poetry to my ears.
I mean, it's just, and again, it goes back to my coaching career, right? I just got this basketball team, 3rd and 4th graders this season. And I've coached at the YMCA for 15 years. I won Arizona Coach of the Year out of all the YMCA coaches a few years ago.
Congratulations. That's
Congrats.
awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome, man. And it's like, and it's true. Like, when people see JP Jaramillo on the coaches roster, they just go, here we go again. Because I already did it. I took my kids through high school, won tons of championships, went to Suns Arena. Because of my ability to coach, motivate, lead, develop, and connect genuinely with these kids. The amount of times we go out for chicken fingers, or I've taken kids that don't have dads under my wing, that I've cut a check because their mom couldn't pay the SRP bill. Like, that's being a leader. It's not just filling out a one-on-one form every quarter going, oh, they did RFIs great. Like, that's part of it. Like my kids need to know how to run a 3-2 zone. They need to know how to run a box offense. They need to know how to do this and that shit comes. But if your leaders don't know how to connect with their people genuinely and have the ability, the capacity, and the energy to do it, then what are you doing as an executive staff to make it so? Because if you don't make it so, you're never going to win that game. You're not.
So
That's great.
what are some litmus tests for identifying great candidates? I'm sure you've got some.
Well, I mean, technically it's pretty self-explanatory, right? The ones that are building the big work and the work that all of us want, right? Big mission critical facilities, semiconductor facilities, big industrial work, and the ones that have a proven track record for doing a lot of things we just discussed. But really, project management is just about making money, mitigating risk, making sure your team's motivated and driven. They're doing it safely with quality, and they actually have a passion for what they're doing. Like, it's not super complicated. You can get into the nuts and bolts of what does a project manager do and this and that and this and that. But, it's the soft skills, like, can they collaborate with others? Can they show up on a job site and instead of competing with others, can they complete others? That's a big John C. Maxwell thing that I learned a long time ago. How do I show up and complete others, not compete with them? And it's those little intangibles that make people successful. We can teach them how to go build a $10 million job or an $80 million job. It's the same shit. It's just more quantities. Instead of 250 busways, it's 10 busways. So, like, it's all scalable from a technical perspective, right? But that's why we have to focus on the other things. And as an executive team, look at our people and go, again, how do I give them the energy and capacity or time back by surrounding them with good talent while also investing and pouring into them? And that's the secret sauce. And it takes money, it takes buy-in, it takes energy. But you also have to have an executive team who walks the walk and talks the talk. And if you don't, you're just going to end up with a bunch of mini-me's who are very similar. And if you're okay with that and you're making money as a company, I guess, then okay, if that's your culture. I think you just have to figure out, like, what do you want your culture and who you are? What do you want to be about? That's Justin's whole thing. Be about it. Well, what are we being about? And then let's communicate that message and let's make sure our leadership is being about it. And any growing company, I'm sure, is going through those growth pains like we are, where you're trying to figure that out. You've got 4 different companies, 4 different brands, bunch of different leaders. And of course, we all want to win and make an impact. But, is it trickling down to the front lines, to our PMs, to our PXs, so that they can then go and pour into the next generation? And easier said than done when you're growing from 180 million to 500 to $1 billion. You're just flying so fast, you end up being reactive. But I think that's why sometimes it's okay to slow down and make sure that we're focusing on those areas in addition to just getting work and building it, which, yeah, easier said than done. But those are my observations anyways, after 19 years in the industry. And I mean, it's not easy, but it can be done. I'm living proof of that. I've done it time and time again, and definitely the fruit's worth bearing.
Well, I appreciate the insight. I want to switch gears. We talked a bit about people, a lot about people.
Yep.
We talked a little bit about process, technology, right? We talked about the ATS. What other technologies do you use that help support what you're doing? And it's not so much the name brand, so much as the stuff that you're doing, right? That's sort of supporting all those efforts. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So to keep it super simple, going back to giving my recruiters time back, the biggest thing we've implemented was, like many companies, the AI interview taking notes. And we use BrightHire for that. And what's cool about BrightHire for us is it integrates with Greenhouse. So if I go have a phone screen with the candidate, whether it's Teams or a phone call, that gets captured and put in the candidate's profile in Greenhouse. So when I go to that candidate 5 years from now and I click on the candidate, I can watch that conversation with my recruiter and that candidate, and also all the notes are taken for it. Even better, when we get to the offer stage and I send that candidate's offer to Greg Ayers for approval, he can go in if he has any questions and look at the notes and watch the interview if he wants. So it helps create transparency for, who we're hiring and why we're hiring them. And then it also gives the recruiter time back because they're not sitting there having to take notes, and they can truly connect and go through their screening process. That's been a big game changer, especially for the craft who are doing 30 to 35 screens a week. It's a lot. Everything's captured. It's in the ATS. And it's all right there. You can see how people talk on teams. You can see how they present. You can see how inquisitive they are, so on and so forth. The other thing is basic stuff like Calendly, right? We a lot of times will go through a rec and they'll send out a request. And that's been super helpful because with craft, their schedules are crazy. So they just send out a text message to those candidates saying, hey, thank you for applying. I can't wait to connect with you. Can you choose a time on my calendar for us to connect? So simple. I know a lot of people use it, but that's been another game changer. Instead of trying to get a hold of the candidate, hey, or texting the candidate, right? And I'd say 70% of my recruiters' screens are filled up through that way. And most of my recruiters are booked a month out with phone screens.
Oh, okay.
That's
like no joke. I could look at Candace, for example. I know right now her entire month is booked Monday through Friday with phone screens. It's nuts.
Wow. That's like executive level time management right there.
No. So that's been super helpful. Grayscale's great. We use Grayscale, which integrates with Greenhouse for texting, right? If we're going to do a big ramp, we'll send out we tag all of our licensed journeymen in Greenhouse so we can run a report of licensed journeymen. And we can send a text through Grayscale that says, hey, we're going to be ramping in San Antonio. We've got this mission critical facility. It's running 2 years. We're paying up to $39 an hour plus per diem. Would you be interested in a conversation? Here's my Calendly link. Really hope to talk to you. Boom, they could blast that to 1,000 craft in and around Texas and start to fill up their calendar, or they'll respond. And all the responses go into Greenhouse, which is cool. So you can see the correspondences. You can track metrics and who responded, what the response rate was. That's been super helpful. Again, it's just, how do we get, the old school way is this, right? How do we get more reach and touch and personalize it as much as we can? I'm still a big fan of the phone, and I'm still a fan of leaving voicemails. But the reality is like, if you can leverage the tech, leverage it. It gets your brand out there more and more and makes it easier to schedule conversations. So I'd say those are the 3 biggest that we've implemented the last 2 years that have been a game changer for us.
Okay. One other piece, because we talked about it, how important is sort of personality tests, personality profiling, culture fit testing? What's your opinion on those?
I think it's a great tool. I think too many times we use it as a decision maker, and like for the predictive index, which we use, they tell you don't.
Hey, don't use this as the answer. This is just a helpful tool to use.
Well, I see it all the time, right? Like I'll use our foreman, for example. So our foreman will oversee a crew of 10 electricians. And we have certain individuals here where if their A is not way over to the right and it's to the left, they will not talk to that person.
Real quick, explain, because not everyone knows what predictive index is.
So,
I do, but what does A mean?
So predictive index basically measures what motivates and drives you, your workplace preferences. So if I put you in this environment, how will you respond? Will you be motivated by that, or will you not be motivated by it? So if you put me, JP, I'm low detail. I'm over here on the left quadrant. If you put me as a paralegal, I'm going to hate my life. I might be able to do it, but I'm never going to be your best employee.
I think all paralegals hate their life in my personal experience. But yeah, no, to your point, absolutely. No details. That's not great for legal.
So high A is just high drive, right? So you want to be in charge. You want to take control. If I put you into an environment where it's going 1,000,000 miles an hour, you're going to be okay because you're going to like, all right, I got this. Let's go. Whereas low A might be you're more collaborative. You want someone to work with. They say, hey, here's what we're going to do. or I need you to tell me what to do, which more times than not, it's true. I've seen it in my own career. It's pretty accurate. However, if someone is working for a competitor and they've been there 5 years and they've been successful and they have low A, why wouldn't you talk to them?
Right? They have a proven track record, but yet the tool has told me everything I need to know.
Tool has told me everything. Nope, you're not going to make it. I know, because the last 10 people I fired had low A. I'm just like, dude. So we use it. We recommend using it to again, help create more quality questions around the concern. Our job is to alleviate concerns. If there's a low A, well, then we just talk to them about their experience and when they've had to go into scenarios or projects or situations and take control and take charge and how they approached it and what the outcome was, what they learned from it. And then, like, if they have the experience, then we move on. But yeah, I would say it's pretty accurate with what motivates and drives you. And I've seen it, right? Like one of the recruiters I mentioned, she's not a typical recruiter profile. However, with the right recs supporting the right hiring managers with very similar temperaments that aren't in a big hurry, that aren't hard charging A construction personalities, she's been successful. So it just goes to show, like, it just depends on, now, if I put her on operations with some of my, hard charging, she would just hate her life. But we don't do that. And we have the ability to do that. It does give some good insights. And I think it should be something that's used even for development, or promotions, or even with your own boss. Like, it took 2 years for my boss to understand me, almost 3. And she said that herself. She's like, JP, I did it. You were so different than me, because she's the typical high A, super steady Eddie, high detail. Let's sleep on it. And I'm like, yeah, I'm like when I first meet you, I know right away whether we're going to be best friends or I never want to talk to you again. Like, that's my personality. And I'm the same way. What do you want to know? So that we just get this shit out of the way and on. Whereas that personality is more like, whoa, we need 6 months of interaction before I can figure out if I like you. And nothing wrong with that, right? But it's good when you're going to have people working together, especially reporting to you, to go, okay, I know I can't do this for JP. Like, he can't be the guy managing our ATS. No, we need to find someone to do that. But if you want to send JP to go speak in front of 10,000 people and connect with them and pitch our enterprise and organization and maybe not even like have to study or prepare, that's our dude. Like, right? So just knowing your people and what motivates and inspires them and what tasks to delegate them or not, that's where the test comes in super, super handy.
That reminds me, Will, one of the first interviews we did was a leader named Scott Maloney. He's a president or leader of an architecture firm in Ohio, I believe. So don't hold me to that, absolutely. But he said, even on his episode, he says, like, yeah, it only takes about 60% of the data for me to make a decision. Like, I just have to be 60% of the way there, and then I make a decision. I don't need all the details. Like, that's not how, even like big things where you'd be like, oh my God, that's such a huge, it's like, nah, if I'm 60% of the way there, we're good. Let's go. Let's move. And that's a little bit of that vibe, which I love. This has been a ton of fun. I've had a blast. You're a wealth of knowledge, JP, like unbelievably. I'm super happy that our listeners will be able to hear that. So one of the questions we love to ask everybody that comes on the show is if you could go back 20 years, so that's 2005, starting to get that 20-year anniversary in the recruiting space, what would you tell yourself? What advice would you give young JP?
Man, I'd say just to remind myself that, like, it's about the journey, right? Enjoy the day-to-day journey of fulfilling your purpose on this earth and being grateful that I had a career and I have a career where I'm able to do that. Like, that's what I would tell myself, because so many times I was so focused on the title or the destination, or, man, when I make 6 figures, or, man, when I do this. And it's like, I don't worry about that stuff. Granted, I have the title and all that, but I tell my team, just focus on the journey and learning and serving and giving and challenging yourself to be a better version of yourself so that you can freely give to others. Because the more you impact the lives of others, you win. You win, man. Because all that money and the title and the Lamborghini and all that other stuff, it means nothing if you haven't helped others. It doesn't mean anything, right? It's those late night texts, I get from kids I've coached or past, colleagues or peers or, that are like, man, JP, like I just got promoted to manager. Or I got a high school kids. It's like, coach, we won our first championship. And hey, my mom says hi. That's what it's about, man. So that's what I'll tell young JP.
That's great advice. I love every part of that, being purpose driven, making sure you're trying to get 1% better every day. Those are all, I'm excited for us to talk more about this while you drive me around in your Lamborghini. So that'll be cool. I'm going to throw all your social in the show notes and all that kind of stuff. But if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Man, just connect with me on LinkedIn, and I check that quite often. I'll shoot you an info, or I'll shoot you a DM and share my mobile. I'm a pretty accessible guy. So yeah, that's probably the best route.
Cool. And then is there anything else you'd like to tell the people before we say our goodbyes?
I think, well, you know what? I just saw this the other day, and I would just encourage, the biggest thing I've been telling myself is no matter what the situation, where you're at in your career is, it's if the why is powerful enough, the how is easy. So if the why is powerful enough, the how is easy. And I think you guys have seen from this conversation, I tend to maybe make it seem a little bit too easy. And I guess and it's not, it's just that, man, if the why is powerful enough, man, we'll make it all work. The dream will come true. And I think that's the biggest message I've been sharing with myself personally every single day.
You're full of good nuggets. It's wild. I got all these notes written down here. It's ridiculous. This has been a blast. Listeners, I hope you had just as good of a time as me and Will did, and JP looks like he's smiling, so that he had at least somewhat of a fun time with us today. And until next time, adios.
Thanks for listening to Building Scale. To help us reach even more people, please share this episode with a friend, a colleague, or on social media.
Remember, the 3 pillars of scaling a business are people, process, and technology.
And our mission is to help the AEC industry protect itself by making technology easy.
So if you think your company's technology pillar could use some improvement, book a call with us to see how we can help maximize your IT and cybersecurity strategy. Just go to buildingscale.net/help.
And until next time,
keep building scale.